Welcome to the FemiNinja Project. I am your host, Cheryl I Love, middle-aged ninja hiding in plain sight, dedicated to restoring human dignity one person at a time and helping you unleash your personal power. Discover that it's possible to look like a woman, act like a lady, move like a ninja, and think like a warrior. And remember, men are always welcome on the FemiNinja Project. Part of being able to unleash our personal power is to be able to take control of our lives, take control of our health, and just to be aware of what is available out there that can help you in your life's journey. And I'm so excited to introduce you to a very special person and a very special guest today, Dr. Kaatz Hudson. Welcome to the show, Carly.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Cheryl. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, I'm so excited to have you. And Carly is just an amazing person. She is a chiropractor, along with several other things, too, that she will tell you about. And I met her probably about 3 years ago, and she is not only a fantastic person, she is an amazing chiropractor, and I ought to know because she's had her hands on my spine, and she's even had her hands around my neck, which I think is really brave of her to do that with a, card-carrying, practicing ninja. So, Carly, why don't you just share with us a little bit about your personal story, because I think it's really interesting how you got into alternative healthcare, and the journey that you've had and the path that this has taken you is just really fascinating. So just kind of share with us, how did this all start?
Absolutely. Thanks. Well, it started back when I was a little baby. I came into the world, and when I was 7 months old, I was diagnosed with spinal meningitis. I had H-flu, which back in the 80s had a 5% chance of survival.
Oh my God.
So Western medicine saved my life, but it left me with some brain damage and some nerve weakness and hearing loss. I'm deaf in my left ear, not something that a lot of people really realize about me.
I didn't realize it.
Yeah, I compensate well. And that became the moniker of my life. That I went to PT, and I'm always forever grateful for the choices my mother made, because she made choices like sending me to PT and doing things like Reiki and acupuncture and energy work and all of these very alternative healthcare massages to help restore balance to my body. The damage that I had in my brain left me so that I didn't have control over the left side. Like half of me was missing, and there are, old Christmas videos of me just kind of tilting over.
Oh, geez.
I'm sitting, and then I'm just not.
Would you actually fall?
Oh yeah, I'd fall over on my side. My pinky toes I've broken. I can't even tell you how many times, because that's how I found my way. I had no sense of where I was in space, so I'd run into walls and break my toes.
Oh, jeez.
Where I was in space was an ever-moving target, but I compensated well, and I always compensated well. So I got by, I did my PT, I learned to walk, I learned to sit up again, I learned to crawl again, I learned to walk again, I learned to talk, even without the help of a hearing aid, and
that's pretty remarkable.
I am very, very fortunate. Back in the 80s, you had about a 5% chance of survival.
Wow.
So to be
Your parents
here,
must have been just frantic.
I would not want to know that with my own daughter.
Yeah, no kidding.
In fact, when my daughter was 7 months old, as irrational as all of it was, the whole family was just sort of holding their breath for that month, because I could see it in my parents' eyes what they had to live through with me, and thank God I don't remember it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
but boy, they sure do.
Yeah. Yeah, that's marked pretty deep in their memories.
Was that even in the back of your mind when your daughter was at that age, or did you?
There was sort of this pall, this sort of moment, but what really got me was when my daughter, so when I had my first ultrasounds, my daughter's lungs showed up very bright.
Okay.
And that can be a sign for nothing or something. And that something could be something like cystic fibrosis, it could be something about lung function, it could be something about Down syndrome. And I took very personally and had to go back to working on my own stuff, because it's always our own stuff, that I didn't want my daughter starting off always wondering what if, because that's been my life. That from the very beginning, I always had something I was working through. And I've never known what it is to be a full able-bodied person. I mean, 7 months, but I don't remember this for 7.
Yeah, of course.
My parents do. Here was a good time. But
yeah, right.
But it's hard, and it's hard to, now I know that this is one of my gifts. It's what lets me empathize and relate to my patients. It's what brought me onto this whole process of beginning as a personal trainer, working as a massage therapist, becoming a chiropractor, wanting to do all these alternative therapies and help people never have to say, I compensate well.
Yeah.
But the idea that my daughter, based on this one ultrasound that turned out to be nothing, she's able-bodied and brilliant, and I'm not biased at all.
Of course not.
No. She's just the most brilliant 2-year-old you'll ever meet. But that she would have to start off with, I compensate well, I'm able to accept, and really needing to find those answers specific to her. And what I came to realize, and it really stuck out with my patients as well, is that we all have something. You know, mine has a dramatic story and a dramatic beginning, but everybody has something that they have to work through. They have to find the tools unique and specific to them, and they have to find the provider that hears the real question they're asking when they say, I'm in pain, I can't, I want to. And it doesn't matter where we all start. We're all just looking to be heard and looking to do better than where we're at. And then that let me let go of that ultrasound, and I believe that's part of what made her so healthy.
Absolutely. Yeah, there is a lot to be said about the mind-body connection. And when that baby is, that's a part of you, and they're picking up on every single thing that's happening. So it's really interesting. So then when you were a little girl, like, when you started school, did you realize that you were a little bit different from the rest of the kids? And how did you take that compensation into your schooling, as far as not only your school work, because personally I know that you're a brilliant person, intellectually and cognitively, but even just with like some of the balance issues and the things that you had, not your typical little first grader running around on the playground. Right. So how did that impact your life? How did you deal with that?
Well, so the schooling and the classroom stuff, I actually was taught to advocate for myself. Which
good for you. Your parents taught you that?
My parents taught me that.
Yeah. Go mom and dad.
I love my parents. And not just because I have this. No. That my mom, I think it was like kindergarten and first grade, and then I get fuzzy on when it actually started, but she helped me write a letter to my teacher to say I am hearing impaired and I need preferential seating. And along with that, because I was in intensive care for about a week and a half.
Oh, jeez. I've worked in intensive care units, both, in adult and pediatrics. So, wow.
Oh, and pediatrics too. I mean, that's, I'm grateful I'm not the one that remembers this.
Yes.
In some ways, that part of it is more my parents' story. But because I had that intensive care, my immune system never really developed.
Okay.
And so, I mean, if someone said they had a head cold and they were across the room from me, I was sure to get it and be sick for the next 2 months. So I missed a lot of school growing up. And so at the beginning of every school year, I went to my teachers, and the first few years, my mom helped me and then helped me write the letter. And then it just became my job to go and tell the teachers, this is what's happening. I need to sit at the front of the classroom, and I need you to know that I may have a lot of absences, but I'm determined to make up my schoolwork. And I did miss a lot of school. But I was taught to advocate and compensate and just keep up.
And it certainly has served you well your entire life, even now, of course.
It really has. And even that sort of advocating for myself part, it taught me to make my own choices. So that when I was going into high school and getting into classroom placements, AP advanced placement things, I had one of my teachers tell me, I don't think you should do AP literature, because if you're sick, I loved literature. I actually started off as an English major. This was my jam. I said, but when you get sick, you miss so much classwork and so much reading, it'll be very hard for you to keep up. And you had so many absences this year, I think that it'll bury you. I said, I like reading. And I'm
lay down that gauntlet, baby. Yeah. Let me show you what I can do.
And I'm a little bit of a rebel, so as soon as someone says I can't, no, you didn't know that about me. No, so few people do. I keep it so hidden.
You hide it very well, about as well as I do. So I think that's why we hit it off so well.
Don't have it on my keychain.
I think you should get a bumper sticker.
When my husband for my birthday got me a keychain that just says Rebel across it.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
I love that.
That's my favorite gift. Yeah.
So when you were then, let's say, junior high, high school, were there any activities that you did engage in, like, dance or gymnastics or sports or, kickball or anything, or were you kind of sidelined because of the balance issues?
I was sidelined. I flunked out. You don't flunk out of gymnastics, but I flunked out of gymnastics.
Yeah,
I did. I could never do the balance beam. That was just not an option. And now my daughter's taking gymnastics, and when other parents aren't looking, I'm like, I'm going to do this now.
Do you? Are you playing with it?
I am, because I've had a whole lot of rehab, and I've had a lot of functional neurology work. So my balance, I could stand on one leg as of 5 years ago, which was a first.
Right.
So now I'm practicing and I'm challenging and I'm pushing toddlers out of the way so I can get on the balance beam.
There you go. Yes, just knock them down.
Just knock them down. They had their turn.
Let mom through.
No, kidding. So I couldn't do gymnastics. I distinctly remember so I always knew that my hearing was different, my immune system was different, and I was in a jazz dance class in elementary school, and we were doing pirouettes. What is this motion I'm doing? Like spinning across the floor.
It kind of looks like Shanae turns, but it's hard to tell. Well, there you go. How about that? I can't believe I could do. She was sitting in a chair and I just moving her arms.
Well, and thank God, because nobody else needed to see that.
Actually, you still have it. It was very graceful.
Thank you. I've always had the arm movements.
I liked even your chest was lifted and the head position.
I had such potential, but everybody else went in a straight line, and I kind of went off in a diagonal. And it was sort of like I kept practicing really hard, going like, I can't get the straight line thing, and pretty soon I found myself kind of remedialing back, and I was like an 8-year-old with the 4-year-olds, and going like, it's time to make priorities. And I had I think I had great hand-eye coordination, great body control when my brain wasn't fatigued. So the frustrating thing was I had a certain threshold of my brain worked and coordinated left and right in concert. It was great. And I could be at the free throw line shooting baskets, and I'd just be nailing them, and all of a sudden it would feel like my brain would fatigue, my right would take over, my left would give up, and my sense of center would be off. And now the ball is missing the hoop and the backboard by 2 feet. So I was always the best player on the worst team. Because I wasn't I wasn't dependable. And once I fatigued out, that was it. And it didn't make sense to anybody, and it was sort of just keep trying, just keep practicing. And I knew from experience that the harder I tried, once I got tired, the worse I was. And there was something so unfair and frustrating about that until I finally found a doctor who was able to explain that to me.
And was that the functional neurologist? And how old were you when you found him?
29.
Wow. Yeah. So I just want to stop for a moment and just, say kudos to your parents for everything that they did to get you, to that point, and kudos to you for continuing to look for a solution. And I think what happens a lot of times is a lot of us do kind of hit that wall. They have this frustration, and the medical community, whomever, will put that label on us. This is what you have. This is what you have to live with. This is your normal, and we'll just help you live with it. We'll take care of you. And I heard that so many times in my lifetime, and it's like, don't you tell me what to do or how to run my life. I will take control.
Oh, there's that rebel thing.
Oh, yeah. Did I say I had that too? No.
But I agree. It starts off where compensates well was such a compliment when I was a little girl, and it became such an insult to my intelligence as I got older. Like, I'm done compensating.
This is, I also refer to it, it's the same feeling of having a cheese grater in your face and somebody just scraping at it. That's what it feels like.
It's like, give me better answers. I'm not telling you my story so you can feel sorry for me and tell me what a great little handicapped person I was. I don't want that kind of glory.
Right.
I'm telling you my story because I know someone has my next answer.
Right. Or give me choices.
Exactly. Give me resources. Give me something I can work on because I'm not done fighting.
So when you met this physician, how long did you work with him?
I ended up having kind of a long relationship with him. He was a chiropractor, and I met him when I was in school to become a chiropractor.
Oh, okay.
And I needed his services because, again, I had that left-sided fatigue, and I remedialed one of my adjusting classes because I couldn't control my left arm.
Okay.
It turns out if you can't control your arm, you can't adjust.
Right.
It's a thing.
Yeah.
So I needed to take my adjusting tests halfway through the term. So that's what I ended up doing, was studying and learning all of the material that most students learn in 10 weeks in 8 weeks so that I could take it earlier before my brain totally fatigued out, because we're doing like 40 hours of classwork a term. And so I went to Dr. Zielinski in Lake Oswego, and I needed a note in order to do this. And he said, well, I can give you a note, but I can also fix you. And this was...
And did a choir of angels begin to sing?
I just started sobbing.
I'm sure. Yeah.
And this is not a guy that... I mean, I'm sure people cry in front of him all the time, but it's never his favorite part.
Well, not only that, you're just not a crier. Again, you're like me, kind of like Ice Maiden.
I was like, I got this.
Yeah.
I've gotten through my stuff.
Yeah.
But and that was another really great moment to learn that it doesn't matter how much work comes after that diagnosis. Finally getting a diagnosis about my cerebellar ataxia and my dystonia and my apraxia, words that I'd never heard before.
Wow. So these are all very fancy words for our listeners out there, and they do have fancy words for simple explanations.
Fancy words for muscles that clench and don't release.
There you go.
For limbs that you cannot control, and weakness in a part of your brain called the cerebellum. And your cerebellum is what controls and coordinates all of your movements, from your eyes to your arms to your core to your speech. So, I mean, all of these things aside, I had speech issues, I had memory issues. There was a lot of things that I compensated well at. And finally, I had a diagnosis.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So that was your entire life, walking around without anything specific. So once you've had that diagnosis and you've got these 3 things to work on, then it kind of narrowed it down. So you weren't just flailing trying to figure out what was wrong or trying to compensate. He was able to help you pinpoint it.
Absolutely. I wasn't in my neurology classes as a graduate student going, okay, if this pathway goes here and this one goes here and this is broken on me, why is it broken and how do I fix it?
Right.
I had a doctor who had done that and done the training and knew, and he gave me the treatments.
And you had a partner this time, a partner in crime, so to speak, so you weren't on your own. But I just want to go backwards a little bit in time, because you did go to chiropractic college, of course, but prior to that, you were...
a massage therapist.
Okay, so when you got into massage school or interested in massage, how did that come about? How did you get interested in that?
It was I'd say it was like a thought that thought me. That I originally wanted to be a family therapist.
Okay.
I always knew that I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to help people. But the traditional medical model of doctoring and prescribing medication was something that didn't interest me. It has its place. Like I said, it saved my life. But after that, it masks symptoms. You don't actually get better by doing these things. You manage what's already wrong. And that didn't agree with me.
That's what I love so much about alternative medicine and so many different alternative things that are out there, because I think, again, Western medicine is fantastic and saving lives, cutting out the cancer and, fixing the broken bones, et cetera, but it leaves you kind of lost. It's like, okay, now we're done with you and, figure it out on your own. So there's a path, there's a connection that, like the trajectory, it's a missing link. It's like, you can't just leave me here. Where do I go from here? And then, of course, traditional physical therapy, which is wonderful. I am a physical therapist. I did not last very long in traditional PT because it just did not resonate with me, and I get just kind of graded against everything that I believed in and that helped me, and that's how I went into alternative things as well. So, but I found it fascinating that you ended up into massage therapy, and that led you to eventually chiropractic.
And it's something I never would have done, because even through all of the alternative care that I'd received, chiropractic was never on that list. I never knew about chiropractic. It was a little bit of a quackery in my family, as it is still in so many places considered to be. But
still at this point in time, do you think?
Yeah, I have some patients that come in and tell me just how crazy their family members think they are for being here, but darn it works. And it's coming around. But
Well, I know even I've been, I went to physical therapy school, what was it, 94 was when I went to PT school and graduated in 96. And there was definitely a bias against chiropractors in my PT training, which was really interesting because I had a history of going to chiropractors and acupuncturists for, quite a few years before I even entered into PT. So we would get into some very heated and interesting discussions, and I remember one of my classmates was totally poo-pooing acupuncture.
Oh, really?
And she said it's just nothing but voodoo. Well, and she was married to a physician. She had actually gotten into medical school and ended up having a baby instead. So, years later ended up in PT school. It just doesn't work. It's just voodoo and blah, blah, blah. And I says, well, then how do you explain how it helped me so much with, these different situations? And she said it was mind over matter. It was just because you thought it was going to, it was a placebo effect.
Never underestimate the placebo, man.
Well, then, no, I went back and I said, well, then explain to me why it works so well with my dogs. And she just stopped for a moment and she says, well, maybe they're just picking up on your attitude that you think. And I'm like, we're not going anywhere with this conversation.
That's a dead-end conversation there.
So it was really interesting because I did have a really pretty cool relationship connecting the PT and the chiropractic end of it. And I actually worked in a chiropractic office for almost 3 years, after I said this traditional stuff isn't working for me. So I'm sorry.
We digress.
Yeah, I know. And it's all about me. So,
but I love it that where chiropractic and PT need to come together is that, chiropractic loosens everything and PT tightens everything. And we need both.
Exactly.
Because if you're trying to tighten something that's already tight, you're not solving the problem. And if I have and actually my favorite patients are yogis, are hyper flexible people because they're actually the ones that need me the least. They're the ones that need the strengthening and the rehab and the muscular stability over the adjustments. And it's really fun to work with them and get them into a new area of their body where they can really do strengthening and rehab.
So it is all about finding that balance of mobility and stability.
Exactly.
And I think that a lot of people get confused about that because they want to be strong.
Right.
And see some of the bodybuilders and stuff, it's like, well, okay, you're strong, but you don't have the mobility that you need, and you're messing up your joints and going to be paying for it later.
And then you have the yogis who are so mobile and they can bend themselves and fit into a tiny box, but they don't have any stability and they're in just as much pain. It's really the meeting of the two worlds. And that's where I really like I think I see a big change in chiropractic and PT starting to want to come together and play in the same sandbox and know that we need both sides of that coin to come together.
Because it was probably 18 years ago when I was working with this chiropractor, and we got incredible results really quickly.
Yeah.
Because, he did the stuff, number one, that I didn't want to do, the adjustments, the mobilizations, and then, once he got them out of pain and stable or structurally, then he sent them to me so I could strengthen them and help them keep their structure. Because if you're not on your structure, it doesn't matter how much you're strengthening. If your structural alignment is off, you're not going to be out of pain. You're just reinforcing the bad patterns.
Yes.
And it's the same thing if you're strong, but it goes both ways.
It does. And
so you have to have that.
I've decided that if I'm ever going to write a book, I'm going to call it Strong in All the Wrong Places.
Ooh.
That all of us are strong. We are upright. We are moving. Right. We are going forward in the world. We can pick up our kids. We can get through the day. But are we aching? Are we hurting? Do we have restricted mobility? We're strong. Don't try and say that you're weak. But the muscles that perhaps should be doing the job are not. And that's what we do in my office is a lot of retraining. Are you shrugging your shoulders to lift your arms instead of dropping them down and using your scapulas and using this entire core motion to do it?
So recruiting the helper muscles.
Exactly.
And those are the ones that people don't focus on because they don't see them. We see the more superficial muscles, and we want those toned muscles, and we want that sleek look. We want that strong look, but we forget about the inside muscles because we can't see them. And those are more important even than the outside muscles. If you don't have those, it's like, a bad foundation on a house. It's going to fall apart.
Exactly. They're not flashy. They're not sexy, but they're going to get you there.
Yeah.
They're going to have everything else left. They're your foundation. I love that analogy. Yeah.
Wonderful. So then, okay, how long were you? We're going back to the massage
I was like,
therapist.
what were we talking about?
I'm keeping track. It's all in the vault.
As long as one of us is.
But so with the massage therapy, then once you went into massage therapy school, how long did you work as a massage therapist?
I worked as a massage therapist for 3 years. I finished my massage therapy training as part of night school while I finished my undergrad up at CU.
Oh, wow.
For psychology. So yeah, I wanted to be a family therapist, but I hated doing research. So I thought there was a connection there that I missed. So I thought I would get my massage certificate and have a way to make money through grad school doing massage.
Smart.
But once I got my hands on the body, I mean, that was it. The changes that we could do. I worked with victims of domestic violence and returned.
Oh, wow.
We returned safe touch to their bodies, and it transformed their lives and how they carried themselves. And I couldn't get over that if we change how we live in our bodies, if we change how we live and carry ourselves, suddenly everything else becomes a little bit more accessible and hopefully easier.
Yeah. Remember that for the book. Okay. That's a really wonderful quote. And it's true. So then with the 3 years of working as a massage therapist, how did that then start getting the ball rolling of I want something more, I want something different, I want to continue on this path of helping people heal themselves, because basically that's what you're doing, is you're helping them heal.
And that remained the goal throughout all of it. And I still had this nugget in the back of my mind that I was going to be a doctor. I wanted to be a doctor when I grew up. And I kept looking for psychology programs, and I was looking for somatic therapy programs, which just 10 years ago there were not many of. Yeah. And they kept being dead ends. And I met a chiropractor in my BNI group.
Oh, my. Okay.
Yeah, when I lived in Boston. So I graduated from massage here in Boulder and moved to Boston with my then boyfriend, now husband. He got his MBA. And I opened my practice, and I met this chiropractor. And he just sat down and started talking about how here's a medical profession where the body is taught to heal itself. And he just jazzed me. And I think it was within 2 months after having this conversation with him, I found the chiropractic schools. I started signing up for all my prerequisites. I actually opened one of my massage locations in his office and worked as his office assistant for the better part of a year, just so I could keep learning and doing and exposing myself. And that was it.
It is amazing that the body has such an incredible potential and power to heal itself. It wants to be in homeostasis. It really wants to be in neutral. It wants to be healthy and to be able to do and to be able to move. And movement is so important. And I think in our society today, we keep forgetting. We have to move.
I said, my only job security, my patients, I was like, why are you trying to get rid of me? Don't you need job security? And I don't. We are in a society where like you and I are sitting in chairs right now. We spend more of our time seated. And so long as we are in a sitting society versus a squatting society, people will need people to teach you how to move again.
Yeah.
Because as soon as we start pouring ourselves into chairs, we stop using our pelvic floor. Right. Our glutes turn off. Our core shuts down.
Right.
And we have to learn all over again.
And that brings me to another point, too. I always because I don't go to the gym. I hate going. I'm a physical therapist that hates exercise and thinks that chocolate is food. But it's okay. Yeah, it works. I love to move. And so I found what works really well for me, which, with the dance and Pilates and all the other things, martial arts that I've done along the way. But when we were children, that's all we did do was move. We didn't
go to the gym.
Yeah, we didn't go to the gym. Who needs to go to the gym? So it's not, even if you do go, though, it's not what you're doing 3 times a week at the gym. It's what are you doing the other hours of the other days in the week. So it's not just, okay, I'm going to do my exercise, these 3 hours a week or 4 hours a week, and then you're going to forget about it. It's just learning how to move and taking those movements that you learn, the healthy movement patterns, and incorporating them into every single thing that you do, whether it's picking up your daughter, unloading the dishwasher.
Great time to squat.
Great time to squat. Get those hip joints going. Hip joints are one of my favorite joints of the body.
Aren't they phenomenal?
They are just amazing what they can do, that range of motion.
So frozen in so many people.
I know. So you want to talk about why?
We spend so much of our time in that forward flexion, and we give off. We sit here in our chairs, and then we give away that motion from our hips, and we put it in our low back. So we have this really great forward-backward movement of our hips, but anytime we want to twist and move, we've relegated that to our low spine, which the joints aren't even shaped to do that. So now we have low back pain, and everything starts freezing from there. With our major muscle movers of our glutes turned off, we start to use our smaller muscles, our accessory muscles, like the piriformis, to do our stabilization. Well, those muscles are the ones that are meant to rotate our hips and give us those beautiful extensions that you see in dancers, where it just seems like their leg is attached to someone else's body. Well, their butt's working. So those little rotators get to do the movement for them.
Once again, it's finding that balance. And that's what you do so beautifully. Well, you do so many things so beautifully. You know, you give great adjustments, you do soft tissue, you do such a good job of educating your clients, your patients, and, you know, just letting them know what's out there. But you really do a fantastic job of teaching them how to recruit those small muscles.
Thanks.
And that's just so important. And people forget that. And especially, you know, with some of my listeners, I think that they might be, you know, like me, more mature, you know, maybe over 40 or so. And of course, I'm well over 40. But as we get older, those muscles become even more and more important because we have spent so much time sitting and not working on those small muscles and not focusing on them. So what would you suggest to somebody like that? I mean, you know, just in general, just kind of give some real brief, you know, pointers for us.
Start small. A lot of us give up movement. We outsource our movement because it starts being painful or uncomfortable or unsteady. So we think we're not going to do it at all. And that's the first mistake. And it's so unconscious and so effortless. I don't want anyone to spend any time beating themselves up about it. Just notice, where are you not moving? And how can we get that back? So more recently, one of my favorite exercises, we all kind of go through our favorites here and there, is starting to work on standing on one leg, but not in a traditional balance situation where, you know, just stand there and don't fall over.
Right.
I want you to challenge yourself by tipping forward just far enough on one leg that you feel your glutes firing, tightening, activating, however you want to call it, without them recruiting and asking for help from the front of your hip, the back of your knee, your hamstring, your thigh, your low back, your neck. We could get real creative. I had someone say, oh, my jaw hurts so much.
What does that tell you?
They were recruiting everything. And just fire. And that's only standing on one leg. And most of the time, your foot's just barely off the ground just to get that butt to fire.
Right.
And start moving.
Well, I think what I'm hearing you say is that to slow it down and to really focus on the micro movements. And I think that we are so distracted by, I have to do it big, or I have to do it right, or I have to do it fast.
If I can't do a deep squat or keep up with a core power vinyasa flow from, you know, from hell, then you shouldn't do it.
Right.
You're going to sit at home and you're going to relegate yourself to a life of no movement.
Right.
But can you do a little tiny squat while you put away your dishes? Can you squeeze your butt while you're sitting on your chair just to wake it up? Yeah. Can you pull your belly button into your spine? We can all do that.
Yeah, a little bit of pelvic rocking even.
Start small and it will build. And something that I was taught throughout my lifetime is that it is the patience. That is the hardest thing for the patients to learn, is the patience. It takes time, it takes persistence, and it takes mindfulness and diligence. This is not a go push it out at the gym, do your 30 days, now I've got great biceps kind of change. This is every time I stand up and sit down from any surface, I am committed to making sure I'm using my butt to do it.
And it might sound, for those of you who are listening, it might sound like a lot of work or exhausting. And at first it is a little bit, because you're just mentally more than anything. Yeah. And to bring that level of awareness into every single thing that you do, then you're going to get so much more benefit, and you're going to feel so much better too. Yeah. It's just paying attention to yourself.
Well, and everyone talks about mindfulness. It's such a buzzword. And what it comes down to me that mindfulness truly is focusing on a habit that you want to replace with the new, and making sure that is the utmost important thing in your heart until it sticks.
And making small changes.
And
being gentle with yourself.
The most important part.
Don't beat yourself up. There's plenty of people who will do that for you.
Absolutely. You don't need to be your worst critic, though we all know that we are.
Especially as women. And, you know, we need to be a lot nicer to ourselves. And, Yeah, just give ourselves some space. But I think in our society, everything is go, 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 do, instant gratification. And to go back to that sense of slowing down, listening to our body and paying attention to our body. And that's how we learned how to move when we were babies.
Absolutely.
And small. And then, of course, we were moving around just fine. And every single thing that we did, we were applauded and another milestone and bravo, look, aren't these babies, these little children, they're so wonderful. And then we get fully upright and functional, and then we're told to sit down and shut up.
And that's where the mistakes begin.
There you go.
And what drives me nuts is, speaking of these little babies, and I did a blog post about this not that long ago, is that, what we watch these kids do and have such patience for, and I watched it with my daughter, not a year or more ago, is that she started off and all she could do was barely lift her head off the table, off off my lap. And it was no more than centimeters.
Right.
And then no more than a few inches. And then she could hold her own head. And then she could extend, but only just the tiniest bit. And I'm applauding all of this. This is the painstakingly slow movement that accumulated to her sitting up on her own and walking and running and now hanging on the monkey bars.
That must be so much fun to see.
Gosh, it just makes me want to cry every time. I'm watching her and I'm seeing her move like this, and I have my own issues and my own history with it, and just watching her be so free and run around and know how deliberately she had to build it.
Right.
And we don't give ourselves that same credit now as adults.
Right.
That essentially we need to slow down and be as deliberate as an infant.
And curious
yes.
as an infant.
Because that was the other fun thing to watch, is that she'd get her head to move a little bit to the right and her eyes just kind of wide and low. What is this? I'm over here now, check me out. And we don't give ourselves that credit.
Right.
My patients come in and say, my leg's going out like another 3 inches, but what of it? Like, it's going out another 3 inches. You couldn't rotate from your hip 2 weeks ago.
Right.
Do you know how hard that was and how hard you must have worked? That is phenomenal. It's like, but I want to do the splits. It'll come.
Yeah, patience.
It'll come.
Yeah.
It would never come if you never got those 3 inches.
Or you could force it, and then you're going to mess up your SI joint.
Exactly.
And you're going to have some really huge problems.
You could tear and break yourself.
Yeah, of course you could.
That's always an option.
But what's the point? There's no sport in that.
No.
I have one teacher that I study with up in Boulder, and I just love this woman. And she always says, it takes the time. It takes the time it takes.
Exactly.
And you have to be patient with yourself. And she also says that we are just absolutely brilliant. And the human body truly is phenomenal, and we are brilliant. And I think sometimes we give up our own inner brilliance and our personal authority when we go to people, personal trainers or PTs or strengthen me, help me do this, and then we're relying on somebody else to tell us how we should move or what we should do, instead of finding for ourselves and exploring for ourselves what we could do and what makes sense for us.
And that's the most important part, and what I love best about the people that I get to work with in my office is that while I love that they're getting this more full range of motion and their pain doesn't hurt, it's the moment when they come in and say, I was feeling tension in my neck, and then I felt my shoulders, and I dropped them down, and all the tension went away.
That awareness.
And like, you own your body now. This was never mine. This wasn't my job for you. You needed to find the difference between what that felt like.
You didn't fix them. You taught them how to fix themselves. Yeah.
And that's the best.
Which is just, it's empowering. It is very empowering.
And it's what they need to do. It's what I always needed to do. And so maybe I'm just doing the only way I ever knew how. But
well, especially if somebody's always been told, well, you're going to be like this forever. I was told when I was in my mid-30s, chronic pain patient, this is your new normal. Don't worry about it, though. We're going to take care of you. And it's like, well, you haven't been doing such a great job, and I don't really like somebody else being in control of my life and my body. So it's a really great way. So why don't you tell us or share with our listeners what your practice is like? I mean, you are in private practice, and you when you finished chiropractic college, you did kind of have a mentor for a little while, and then you realized that you you really knew what you were doing, and it was time to go out on your own, and you did, and you started your own small clinic. It was just you, and now you have this lovely healing center. So tell us all about that.
Yeah, so I worked for a short time with another doctor and really kind of got my feet wet out in the world, and then decided that I wanted to do it myself.
You realized you own it. You got it.
I own my own massage practice. Might as well do it here as well. And so I started with this little shoebox space, and over the last year I've joined forces. We're all our own entities, but here in my office space we have a wonderful nutritionist, Karen Callback, K2 Wellness, and then Lynn Johnson is a massage therapist.
Okay.
The Wash Park Massage, I think she hasn't changed that yet. But here you can get this sort of whole body, whole wellness care. But just here in my practice, I work with chiropractic, massage, and rehab.
Okay.
And so your typical appointment is about a half hour. We spend a considerable amount of that talking about what's going on with your body, what daily activities you struggle to do without range of motion, pain, whatever your limiting factor is. There are adjustments, there's massage, soft tissue, trigger point kind of work. And the by far and away most important part of the care is when we teach you about your body. This is hurting because this muscle is tight and this muscle went on vacation without telling you. How can we train this muscle back into awareness? How can you strengthen it and use it in your day-to-day activity?
And I think that is such an important component. And a lot of chiropractors and PTs, you know, they do it, but you do it in a way that makes so much sense, and it's very practical and it's functional.
Well, and I agree with you about, you know, not wanting to spend time in the gym. I love doing yoga. That's my movement therapy, and I love working with yogis. In fact, I'm doing my yoga teacher training in January because it's an entire world that I feel like needs to be catered to with that strengthening and stability piece. But I don't spend time in the gym. I don't have time to, and I have no desire to. So we want to bring...
Well, you have a 2-year-old. You have a gym at home with her.
Well, and that's the point. We have a gym at home. And I actually had a patient just this morning. He was talking about he was picking up his son and kind of swinging him back and forward, you know, down by his knees and then up to his shoulders in a squat. You go, how is this different than a deadlift? And I said, you're holding a child, not a bar.
Right.
And otherwise, it's the same thing. He, without having to go to the gym, because he has a 3-year-old, he owns his own business, he's got a life, he can do 10 squats with a 30-pound weight every morning if he picks up his kid in a mindful way that uses his glutes, uses his core, and stabilizes.
Which is a whole lot more fun picking up a 3-year-old than just a weight.
They giggle a lot more than
Well, and not only that, the fun thing too about when you're picking up a kid, you know, if you're picking up a weight or just a steel rod or whatever, it's not moving and it's just kind of boring and stuff. But a child is always wiggling, always moving, so it's challenging your dynamic stability and your dynamic mobility at the same time. It adds
so many layers, and it's totally unexpected.
Right.
And I may think that I'm going to pick up my daughter with one hand, and she says, "No, Mommy, over here." I'm like, okay, but that side's tired. But I guess we're doing it.
Exactly.
She doesn't care.
Maybe she knows.
Maybe she knows I didn't want to do that side. I was trying to avoid it. And I can get down in a squat with her and play with her on a ground, squatting, not slumped over, cross-legged, or without pulling up a chair. I try and keep her sitting on the ground, playing on the ground as much as possible. I mean, there's going to be plenty of time for sitting in chairs as she ages.
Right, exactly. And then this gives you time, too, being on the floor with her. I get down on the floor, and I tell, when I was still practicing, I told my clients every single day, at least one time a day, you get down on the floor. Because if you don't, then you're going to develop a fear of the floor. You're going to get tighter. Your balance. We develop a fear of the floor and a fear of falling. So if you can kind of keep that going. So I get down on the floor every day with the dogs and kind of roll around with them, and they think that's great fun. So
absolutely. Yeah. And in that way, you get to work all of these core muscles without ever having to go to the gym.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I know. So I'm allergic to gyms. The thought of going to one makes me break out in hives. I've always been that way. So the name of your practice is the Healing Ground Chiropractic.
Yeah, chiropractic care. Yep.
Okay, so how can people get a hold of you?
Online, my website is healinggroundchiropracticcare.com. There you can find ways to contact me. You'll see links to my social media. I'm on Facebook and Instagram, and launching a video education channel next year. So that is to be yet discovered. You can follow on Instagram at Healing Ground Chiro and find, or HG Chiro. I will let you know which one of those to choose.
Okay. Or just go to her website and click on the Instagram link.
Go to my website and click on the Instagram link. That you can see some of the videos of exercises and ways to incorporate movement into your daily life available now.
Okay, excellent. And you have a great blog. I was on it, looking at it. I think it was yesterday. Yeah, just kind of reviewing a few things.
The blog is on the website as well. So really the website is where you want to go for everything.
Okay, so go to Dr. Carly Kaatz Hudson. Go to her website and check it out because it really is a beautiful site. And if you are looking for some excellent chiropractic care, it's not just chiropractic care. I mean, she really does a very incredible, inclusive, and holistic approach and does a great job. So yeah, she's a lot of fun to work with too. So what, before we close, what would you like to leave our listeners with? I mean, I know where you're heading now. I mean, with the yoga certification, I think that's awesome. And what else are you up to right now? And then just kind of leave us with any other pearls of wisdom that you can think of.
So right now, that's really where we're launching into the new year is education. I think, as I've made a little bit clear over here, is the most important part of my practice.
Absolutely.
So I want to have more platforms and more ways to reach people who aren't just here in Denver.
Right.
So more education coming out in 2019. And I guess it's realizing, the pearl of wisdom maybe, is realizing that health is really 1,000 little choices every day. It's not the big diet that we're going to start on January 1st or the gym membership that we're going to start. I mean, it's easy to pick on that given the New Year's right around the corner.
Yeah, thank you for saying that because that drives me crazy. It's like, oh, new year, new you, come transform yourself and do it all in one day. You know, it's like, oh, just, and don't beat yourself up.
I mean, that is just this big gesture. But what feeds that gesture and makes the change is those 1,000 little choices. Yeah. It's deciding that you're going to use your butt when you get up and down from the chair, that you're going to squat at the dishwasher, that you're going to walk a little bit further rather than drive, that you're going to stand up straight instead of schlump. All of these things are ultimately a workout when you don't do them on a regular basis.
And I think that people don't realize that those little bits and pieces really add up. It's a cumulative effect.
Yes, they matter.
So it really does matter.
Yes. So don't undersell the small choices. They are what make you get to the big ta-da. Just think of that baby. Think of that infant barely holding up their head, and not 12 to 18 months later, they're running across the room and you're going, oh God, when did they start doing this? Personal experience.
Yes, I'm sure you were speaking from personal experience. So just remember that the 1,000 steps a day. I think that's a beautiful way of looking at it. So for my listeners, if you are thinking about a New Year's resolution of what you're going to do, and instead of thinking, hey, I'm going to lose 30 pounds, or hey, I'm going to go to the gym 5 times a week, or hey, I'm going to do these huge things, make tiny little changes. Those are the ones that are really going to last. Those are the ones that you're going to stick with. And think of Dr. Carly and the 1,000 steps a day. So, Dr. Carly, thank you so much for being with us. And again, my listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate you. Would love to get your feedback. Would love to hear from you. Just connect. You can always contact me at info@CherylILove.com. And remember, taking charge of your health, taking charge of your life, and just being interested and curious and moving is so important. And that is the way of the FemiNinja. And that's a wrap on another episode of the FemiNinja Project. Thank you so much for listening, and remember, be safe, be strong, and until next time, bye now.